Good evening. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this lovely evening. My name is Medrin Nyambura. Listen, today, just a disclaimer, it's going to be such a loud, fun show. Because Wycliffe, not Wycliffe, Osoro, is in studio today. We also have Muchaneta Mlingo, friend to the family, Karibuni Sana, and we are talking about negotiating for your salary. Yes, I get a notebook and a pen because this is a serious one. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Thank you for looking so dashing. I was saying I needed something, like at least you're closer to her, African thing happening. I just came with me, myself, and I. So, money.
Yes.
When you've gone for an interview and you're asked the question that people dread a lot, how much do you want to be paid? Mucha, what do I say?
I think that it's really important to show that you've done some research. It's important to show that you know what market rates are, you know what you are worth. I think what I've seen in quite a few interviews is people who seem to pull a number out of the sky. It's a first or second job, and you're asking for 100,000.
Mucha, people ask for that money.
Based on what, Megan? So, I mean, for me, I think the first thing I would say is do some research. Know what that role is worth.
Okay.
Know what, is what you are worth. And, sometimes you can even find out what they're offering. So have an idea of what they are looking to offer.
Okay.
So that at least what you ask for, you can substantiate. It's not just about pulling a number from the sky.
Okay.
It's about saying, this is what I'm asking for, and this is why I'm asking for that amount.
Okay.
And I think that's really important.
Okay. I say that because I interviewed another lady who's a HR practitioner as well, and she told me millennials keep asking for 120 and they're quick to say net. Just in case you're confused. But also, at what point does this, how much do you ask for? So that at one point you don't look greedy and you don't undervalue yourself.
Yes, Medrin, I think the first thing is that I'd be looking at is at what point do you want to have this discussion in the first place?
Yeah.
Because I don't think the place for the discussion of salary is in the interview initially. So if you are being asked for the salary you want to earn at the beginning of the interview or the first interview, and probably there's a series of interviews, then it's probably not the right time to have that question asked.
Okay.
So what I'd advise people is really hold off on that discussion and say, I want to have this discussion when you're offering me the job.
Okay.
Because that's when you can have a substantive discussion. You understand the role that you've been interviewed for, and you've done your research, like Mucha has said, you've benchmarked. So at that point, you are doing a negotiation on the salary, because when you give out that number at the beginning, you're actually starting the negotiation without knowing that you're starting the negotiation. So it is something you'd want to avoid, and probably set up a session when you can actually just have that discussion once you already have the job.
Okay.
So I think it's a question that a lot of us in HR want to ask, but then really is it the right question at the right time?
So why ask? For you as the HR, why ask?
No, a lot of times, of course, people want to ask because they need to know whether you're within the budget or not. Genuinely. And you'll find a lot of companies may sort of ask you to indicate that on your application form to sort of know a range, so that you're not interviewing people who are earning 200,000 for 100,000 shillings job.
Okay.
So then it makes sense to ask.
Okay.
But then I think with someone, or alternatively, the company could actually put out the figure and say, this is what this job is offering. So if someone is earning way above that, then they would not have a motivation to apply for the job, because they already know this is
way beyond what I'm earning.
Way below what I'm earning, or way above. But I think the discussion of salary, one of the do's is really just hold off having that discussion until much later in the process, or when you actually know you're the candidate that has been selected.
Okay.
And if I can jump in, I think it's important to understand that you can defer questions. If someone does ask you, you have the right to say, as Wycliffe said, that you'd like to have that discussion later in the stage. I think a lot of times when you go for interviews, you feel like everything they ask you must be giving like a yes, you must be positive in your response. So I think if it does come from the person interviewing you, you can try and justify. I think for me, the thing I always say is have a reason for what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
how
really
much
important.
For.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other tip really is, if you have to give an amount, give a range. Don't lock yourself with. Try and give a range and say this, I'm looking for something between this and this.
Okay.
But it's backed again on the research that you've done.
Yes.
Research.
Yes.
When it comes to details, we've gotten to the place where we're now having the discussion about money. And I was telling you earlier, sometimes people are thrown off when you say, I want to earn 100,000. Do you mean net? Do you mean gross? So I'll ask you, Mucha, do you give the details? Like, I specifically want this amount for net. I need to know what the benefits are. Do you ask for those at that point?
I mean, I think it depends on what point in the interview we are. I think, as Wycliffe has rightly said, at the initial stage of the interview process, no, because we're not really at that point where we're negotiating salary. Very often, you actually get to the point where the job is offered, and then now you start those salary negotiations, where an organization says, this is how much we're offering, and you can then now come and say, counter, that I'm asking for this. That's when you really go into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
I don't think nitty-gritty details are necessary upfront.
Okay.
I think definitely at the beginning stage of the process, as Wycliffe said, go with a range. Say, I'm looking for this much to this much. But now when it's, you've been shortlisted, or you're the one they want, that's when you now can start bargaining.
Okay.
And I think what Wycliffe said earlier that's really important is, after you've gone through, particularly organizations that have a series of interviews, you've had a chance to kind of really get to know that organization a bit more, and see how much they're interested in you as an individual.
Yes.
It helps you to get an idea of how much negotiation power you have, rather than starting the negotiation very early and potentially locking yourself out of benefits that you could have argued for.
Okay. I'm sure there are people wondering, where were these two when I was looking for a job?
Medrin, if I could just add something that you
Yeah.
brought up that's very important, that people need to look at total compensation. So not just looking at the salary, because when you quote the salary, there's a lot of things that go into that package, that compensation package. There's the allowances, there's leave, there's do you get education support, do you get loans at preferential rate? So a lot of those things need to be put together. So you cannot have that discussion solidly in an interview and have an entire discussion around that. And of course, once you have the offer from the employer, with those details, you can be able to then now compare with where you are or what it is that you're looking for, so that you don't get a raw deal at the end of the day.
Many times people don't ask those questions about benefits. Much later is when you find out, medical is a bit different for different positions. But let me ask you, Mucha, when someone says, how much were you earning in your previous position? I shall not confess my sins, but do you reveal the details? Are you truthful, or do you say something that would push you to a higher point?
I think let me take a step back first. The challenge with not being truthful is, so if they ask you to then share your payslip, what do you do? Are you going to go and forge one?
Believe me, we've seen forged payslips, so it does actually happen.
And remember, you see,
Yeah.
here's the thing. It's a very slippery slope when you start edging the corners.
Yeah.
Because they may ask you to see a payslip, for example. And I know instances where individuals have been given an offer, and that offer has been withdrawn because of discrepancies in the information they shared.
Okay.
So I would never encourage anyone to lie about what they're earning. Because at the end of the day, that shows a lack of integrity, and an employer could look at that as, if you can lie about that, what else
Can
are you
you lie
lying about?
about? Yeah.
I know of an individual who lied about a qualification. And
Wow.
and when
Yeah.
they did their due diligence, they found out that it was not true, and they withdrew the offer on the basis of a lack of integrity. So that's not really a way to go. And usually this is information that people can find out, right? I think if you feel that you want more than what you're earning, then it goes back to justifying. It
Why
goes
you
back
need-
to saying why you are worth that.
Yeah.
And this is why it's important to do it at the stage where you're negotiating. And you clearly outline, these are the reasons why I feel I am worth this amount. So
Okay.
if you feel or you fear that what you're earning now is far from where you want to go, that's a discussion point that you can have. But I
Okay.
would never encourage fudging the truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
I think for me, really, the discussion on what you had in the past in terms of salary does not come into play, because this is a totally different role,
Okay.
a totally different organization. So I think the discussion really is about what value do you bring to the organization, and what compensation should you get for that value.
Okay.
So the fact that you worked in a different organization that had a different sort of, we'd say, purchasing power of the labor resource that they have does not then restrict you when you come to another organization. So I think this needs to shift. It's a lot of HR practitioners would want to focus on what did someone have, then add a percentage to it and say, okay, I was able to bring in this person at X times, plus 10%. So this is a good bargain that I've brought you in. But at the end of the day, I think salary is something that's really it's something that people really take not so lightly. So what you need to do is pay people for what it is, the value that they're bringing. And a lot of organizations actually do have structures. And sometimes what someone was earning previously is way below the structure of that organization. So you're not going to shortchange the person because they're earning way below your salary band. You will definitely bring them at the entry of your salary band.
But you do understand the concern for somebody who's probably earning 30 and they're moving to a position where it will be a promotion. And they worry that if I say it's 30, they'll probably tell me, okay, fine, take 40 because then it's an increment. You want to say something?
I think just know what you're worth. I think for me, the solution is simple. Know what you're worth and be able to justify and quantify what you're worth. So, the value. I think as Wycliffe said, what is the value that you're bringing to the table? So focus more on that and steer the conversation away from the fact that you are earning 30,000. Focus on the value you bring. And at the end of the day, if you practice and you make sure you're aware, there's ways that you can steer conversation to the direction you want it to go, away from focusing down that rabbit hole of I was earning this much. So I think the key is it's really important that you know what your value is. And you should not think that you are worthy of this raise just for the sake of it, right? If you were earning 30,000 and you're going for a job that's now 100,000, I need to see why. It's not just because.
Mucha can tell what kind of a boss you are.
I need to see. I want to see. So be able to justify that, this is the value you brought. You've got this X experience. You've handled this number of projects that are related. Get some data that will be able, and then it will help the individual see that you are serious about the role. You understand why you are worth more. And that gives you some negotiating power. Yes.
I hear you. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
No. I think, like she's rightly said, you have to talk about the value that you're bringing. But another thing that I'd like to add is you have to be realistic. Yes, you have to be realistic because if you've not done the research and you're quoting 200% above what you're currently earning, because you think that this is what you should get paid for that, and yet the organization is not going to pay you that, it's nowhere near their salary bands, then you end up losing that opportunity. It helps to try. Because you always want to ask for something, but then you have to be realistic about what you're asking for. Because you can't just say, now I want to triple it, and yet you don't have any basis for that.
The reason why I liked that you say that is because sometimes what you're quoting could lock you out of what could have been a career-changing opportunity because, again, you wanted more money. Before we listen to some music, you're going to also answer this question for me. Once you've settled in, when should your salary be reviewed? But you'll answer that after we listen to 2 songs. Music there. We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. The show is called This Is the Day. Someone is confusing with John Rivers. Come on, guys, really? I'm a lady. I'm black. It's kawaida. We are talking about negotiations of salaries. And let me tell you, I'm learning so much as we go by. If you've just joined the discussion, we talked about at what point you should bring it up again. Till you know you have the job, avoid money talk. But let me ask you, Osoro. There's the issue of your review. And you say this, I think it's Mucha or you who say that sometimes after probation, someone says, okay, fine, it's time for you to review my salary, and she doesn't get it. But at what point should the review come?
I think the discussion that we're having earlier on off air was around the salary review, you need to have that as part of your negotiation. So when you're coming into the organization, have the discussion with the recruiter, with the HR manager, to understand the cycle for review within the organization. When do salaries get reviewed? What is the basis of salaries getting reviewed? Do they get reviewed for cost of living adjustment? Do they get reviewed based on performance? Do they get reviewed based on request?
Okay.
And what is the process then to do that? So once you know that, then you walk into that job knowing that in 6 months, I can request a review based on this, and this is the structure, and these are the limits that would apply. So that's how you go into it. So you cannot just sign a contract that has no talk about review after probation, then come and tell your manager, now I have finished my probation, you've confirmed me, you need to give me a salary raise. So unless it is within the organization's policy to provide an increment at the point of confirmation from probation, then it is not something that you should expect.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Mucha?
And I think what I just add to that, I mean, I agree completely. What I would add to that, and I think we were talking about this earlier off air, is that whatever the process is internally, or whatever is potentially promised to you, have it in writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not enough to have a verbal discussion about how at the end of probation we will, look at your salary, we'll review your salary. Make sure that whatever you are told is actually in writing, because a verbal conversation will not help you.
Okay.
Even if the same person is still there, there's a million ways they could just say that it's not something that's applicable anymore. Or that person could leave, the one who gave you the verbal confirmation. So the promise, exactly. So have it in writing. Have something in writing that says this is what you discussed and this is what was agreed.
Okay. Do you know who comes to mind? Omarosa and Trump. Record those conversations. I'm kidding.
Yes.
There's a lot of fear that comes with signing paperwork, because when you get the job, you've probably been looking for a job for years and you're thinking, finally. And the person says, just sign the paperwork, or we can look at other candidates. And most of the times you're scared, so you sign. Osoro, without confirming all the details. So how do you make sure you sign a contract with a sober head?
I think there is some practice in some organizations which probably is not desirable, which is you provide an employment contract for an individual and ask them to sign it on site and tell them, okay, thank you very much, join us. I think a contract of employment is just like any other contract. You'd want to read through it, understand it, consult with either your spouse, consult with people who are your experts in HR to understand what is the content of the letter. Because some employment contracts are pretty straightforward, so you can understand what is there.
Yeah.
But the trouble with the ones that are pretty straightforward is that a lot of the detail is in the policies, which you don't get to see at the point of signing. So I think really push to ensure that you can be able to take the contract with you, have a duration, ask them, when can I be able to return the contract? Is it 2, 3, 4, 5 days? So that I can be able to review it, understand it to detail, and ask any questions that I need to ask. Because if you're under that pressure to sign the contract right there, there are a lot of things that you will end up missing.
Yeah.
And there are things that you will sign to and you don't understand. So it's important to, at least for any organization that is practicing good human resource, to allow people to at least have the contracts, have an opportunity to review what is in the contract, consult about it, because you're actually entering into a contract, and get the right people to witness it. So don't get someone within the organization to witness it, because it could not have been witnessed in the first place, and that signature was added in the organization. So it's important to do that.
Yeah, as you say that, Mucha, I'm thinking about do you know how you tell a HR practitioner that I need this contract to be looked over? The person panics because they're thinking, why are you involving lawyers? Because the way we've been socialized is if you mention a lawyer, it means you're getting ready for something. But do you think it's important before you sign your paperwork to have somebody who understands, just the legal language of it to go through it?
It's extremely important, because you're signing your name on something that you will be held to, right? And if you don't understand it, I mean, so many problems occur in the future. So many problems could occur in the future. And your employer will tell you, but you signed, right? And you didn't even, and your ignorance is not an excuse. You can't say, I didn't know what I was signing. So it's very important. And I think for me, what I would add to what Osoro said is you might want to ask yourself what kind of employer makes you do something that is not actually right. It's not ethical to force someone to sign something. And yes, it's true, you may have been looking for a job for a long time, but you're looking for a job that you will stay in for a long time. Right? Not just a job that after a few months you realize this is not the right employer.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you take the time, as Osoro said, and if you feel you can't really understand the legalese, then get someone who can.
Okay.
Look over it and just assure you that this is standard, this is normal, the terms in here are the usual terms, there's no extra anything that's been added. It's important to be keen, because at the end of the day, you are signing, you're putting your name to that document, and you will be held to that document, whatever you've signed for.
Okay, I hear you.
And Medrin, just to add it in terms of the Employment Act in Kenya, does provide for what needs to be in an employment contract. So it's important to just go online, get the Employment Act, read through it on what are the particulars that need to be in an employment contract. And if you have some of those particulars missing, then it's important for you to just ask and say, I think this should be in the employment contract, but it is not there.
Okay.
So that's something that you can actually do. And also confirm the provisions that are in your contract with the employment contract as a minimum, with the Employment Act as a minimum, to ensure that you are not signing a contract that is contravening the Employment Act. Of course, the Employment Act will be superior to that, but it's important that you do that.
I'm thinking, how many people go through the Employment Act? If you think about it, because when you get an opportunity, you're thinking your CV, your cover letter, you get your offer, start working. Mucha, if I do go and get a training, or I do an extra course, or I get my master's, or I start working on another degree, then I walk up to my supervisor and say, hi, I have a master's, I need a raise. Is that justified?
No, not necessarily.
You just crushed people's dreams.
I think not necessarily. Remember that an employer is looking at the value that you are adding to the organization. So what your approach should be is outlining the value. So you could outline the value that additional qualification now adds and have a discussion about why that could potentially result in a raise. But just the fact that you went and got a master's does not mean that you should get paid more.
Okay.
No, because there were people who had a master's at interview and were not necessarily paid more.
Okay.
So I think the key is always to look at it from the employer's perspective and think of what value, are you bringing to the table? Okay. And so when you have that discussion, you would then have the discussion from a value perspective. So I've done this particular qualification. This qualification adds value in this particular way. And as a result of that, I feel that it's worth a consideration or a discussion about a wage. Okay. I think a certificate in itself is not enough.
Oh, sorry, we've had this before. People in the corporate world say, I need to go get my master's because there's this promotion that's happening and I have my eye on it. So clearly, is that valid?
Okay, so where that comes valid is if it's a minimum qualification for a promotion, then it is, but it does not directly link to the salary increase. And my simple argument is that if you go in for a master's, if you go in for a certain certificate, it equips you with the skills that you require to become a better person, to deliver better on your job. And if you deliver better on your job, your performance is improved, you're able to negotiate that increase based on your improved performance. Okay. Or based on the quality of work that is now coming out because you had done that additional qualification. Of course, there are some qualifications that are really unique that employers would probably also consider either adjusting your salary because you doing that qualification, there are not many people within the market who have done that qualification. Okay. And the employers will be willing to buy you for that qualification. So at that point, you really have to then consider those options. Okay. But just having a master's and having an additional qualification, I think even within the Kenyan system, I think it's in the Teacher Service Commission, there was a time that you got an additional qualification, you got a raise. You got an additional qualification, you got a raise. But I think that has since been stopped because it's not the right thing. Most organizations need to pay for performance. Okay. So that's where you need to.
And not for extra certificates.
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask this, Mucha. Are young people asking for too much money?
I mean, I think what's great about young people is they're bold enough to ask. You allow me to kind of as I answer your question, go round a bit. I think what's great about young people is they're bold enough to ask for larger amounts than maybe the older individuals were able to. And that's a good thing. But I think the key is you need to be realistic. I think that's a term that Osoro used earlier. And I think you need to understand the value you bring, and this is the word I will just keep coming back to, value. You might find a young person who is new in the job market, but they have a particular skill set that organizations will pay top dollar for. Then yes, why not ask for more, right? But if you have a very generic skill set, the same skill set that I can go into the marketplace and find left, right, and center, then what justifiable reason do I have for paying you a ridiculous amount of money? So I think the question is about value. Okay. So, it's good to be able to ask for, to shoot, a little higher. And sometimes by asking, you get. Yeah. I also have this philosophy that, you've got nothing to lose. The worst you can get is a no. That said, be realistic, because if you shoot too far, someone then thinks, it kind of makes them just think, nah, this is not the right person for us, because you've gone too far ahead. Okay. But going back to what I said, value. Be able to justify, because, okay, I ask you, how much do you think you are worth? And you tell me a figure. Then I ask you why.
You need to have an answer.
And you can't answer. Then you really look foolish, right? So be able to back it up. Give evidence why you feel you are worth that much. The kind of evidence you're looking for is what's paid in the market, right? So what are the general market rates for that particular skill? You may talk about some of the things you've done. I'll give you an example. We were having a conversation with a friend recently who's in the marketing space. Recently, there's the bank, Absa Bank, and they did a relaunch in South Africa, and they had a drone lights display in the sky. Yeah. And I'm imagining that individual who came up with the idea could probably walk into any organization and say, this was my idea, I am worth this much. Okay. It's justifiable, right? You're the kind of person who comes up with such brilliant ideas. Justify it. Okay. Yeah.
I hear that. Yeah.
Medrin, I think while we're talking about justifying what you're requesting, I talk about probably a personal experience. I think the first job that I was almost offered out of campus.
How much did you ask for?
I did ask for quite a huge amount of money. Yeah. And I think in hindsight, when you work for a long period, you then tend to know what is right and what is wrong. Yes. And one of the things that you should not do when you're negotiating or asking for a salary at the initial stages is use your personal circumstances to say, I am going, I need to stay in a house that is this amount. I have siblings who I'm taking to school. Yep. I have a wedding coming up. So that's not justification enough.
That's not the kind of justification.
And I think generally, probably the younger generation, if I look back and look at young me, probably that's what I was looking at. I needed to stay in a place that was this much. I needed to drive around and probably fuel a car and all that. So that is how I had my justification, rather, because you're starting off. It's entry level. So you can't say, okay, this is the value that I'm bringing. I think the safest way to play is to understand, use your networks, use your friends, use colleagues in similar organizations, use HR experts to guide you so that you can be able to know this is how much. This is realistic.
Do you know what's funny? Yes. You went with your budget to ask for salary. That is so funny to me.
But you use your salary for your budget. I mean, but the thing is that really, I think that's one of the things that we really need to avoid. Even when you are negotiating for an increment in your organization,
I was about to say that.
Really, you're in the job. You want to get a raise. The circumstances, in as much as yes, deep down you know this raise is going to help me do this and this and this. Yes. Use your performance, use the value that you're bringing to justify that increment and not have any discussion around
your personal
issues or personal circumstances.
Okay. I'm glad we have a lady and a gentleman, because after the music I'll be asking you about the gender pay gap. Osoro, you'll be in hot fire for this after the music. We're live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. And let me tell you, I am getting to learn so much. This two need to write a book either together, individually, whichever way you two decide, it's fine. And you're talking about negotiating your salary. Guys, we continue to have the issue of men being paid more than the ladies. I have experienced this personally where, the male employee was given more than I was, and in passing, the person responsible just said it in passing. He's a guy. He has a family. You're a chick. He'll be fine. And which are you?
Horrified.
Yes. So why do we continue to have this gap despite having the same qualifications just because you're of different gender? That's where there's a disparity. Sorry, he's laughing.
No, because I want to.
Go ahead, jump in.
I think one, there needs to be statistics.
Okay.
Throwing out a general statement to say that ladies are paid less than men may not be realistic. Yes, there is. I work in HR and I work in organizations, and I deal with payrolls. Okay. So I'm coming from a place where I can survey organizations that I've worked in, where that is not necessarily. It's the value discussion that we've been having. This is what you come in. Of course, traditionally there has been sort of that glass ceiling that has not been broken, and sort of the ladies have ended up being paid less than men. Yeah. But in a lot of the organizations that I've worked in, that has never been a factor. Okay. The thing is, what is it that you bring to the table? This is what you get paid. So sometimes I get surprised because it's a general statement to say that all organizations pay
not
ladies.
All, most do that.
Yeah. I think we need to back this up with the research, with actual figures that then tend to show that. Let me tell you that one thing that why ladies may be able to actually negotiate and earn more than men is they're bold. They're not afraid to ask.
And men are?
Sometimes it's a very shy conversation for a man to go in, and it also depends on personality. So there are men who can ask, there are ladies who can ask. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to drive it in a gender way, but I don't know what Mucha has to say about it. Because
I still want to Sora as my friend.
I think there is data. Yeah. I may not be able to speak specifically to Kenyan data, but I think globally there is data that shows that women are paid less than men for the very same job. There's data out of the US, there's data out of Europe. I know that European countries, there are some that have now made it illegal for you to be paid less as a woman. Yes. For me, to be honest with you, I don't really want to focus so much on that fact that there is a difference and why there is. I think the key is to understand what you can do about it. Okay. Yeah. Right? Understand what you can do about it. Now, I've been throwing out this word value a lot. And one of the things that we discussed in the break that Osoro mentioned is, being self-aware. And especially from an entry-level point of view, you may not have evidence of what value you have. But what I always say is, understand what your worth is and negotiate from that perspective. So for someone who's in a role and is looking to grow in a role, you need to have a log of the things that you achieve in the organization. You need to keep data. I am a data person. I feel that when you're going into a discussion about anything, you should have data to back up. Just like Osoro is talking about data for the gender parity issue. So I think for women, my approach I'd like to take as we have this discussion is more of thinking through how can you make sure that you go to bat and get what you want, right? And not so much worry about what this other person is getting, but get what you want. So for me, I think you need to really keep a log of your significant contributions. Make a note of all the things you're doing, the projects that you're working on, especially projects that have generated revenue for the organization, the places where you've gone over and above. We are often given stretch assignments. So you're told, oh, can you cover this? Right? And you're not paid for covering it. Make a note of it. Indicate that as a result of your doing X, Y, Z, the organization got X, Y, Z. Okay. So I think keep a very clear log so that when you are negotiating, you can come and say, on the basis of this, I feel I am worth X amount. Okay. Because the reality is you will not get very far if you went to your boss and said, I think I should be paid more because my fellow
Gentleman.
dude here is being paid more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not going to be helpful for you.
Okay.
So I think the approach you would need to take is one based on, this is the value I have brought to the organization. For someone who is maybe starting off in their career and doesn't necessarily have a lot of success stories, one of the things I tell young people is you can use things that you have done, not necessarily in a work setting. So the things you did in university, were you the leader of a particular council? What did you do as this leader?
Okay.
What impact did you have in your community? What were some of the things you did in school? So those are still accomplishments, and those are still things that show that you have certain capabilities, that you have leadership qualities, that you are able to make good choices, that you're able to, come out of difficult situations. So I think the key is keep a log, know the things that you have done that add value.
Okay.
And then use that to negotiate. And if you are able to, get some inside info and find out that there's a guy where you're doing the same job and he's earning less than you, then, like I said, go and ask for more, because technically, if you're on the same level, there shouldn't be a difference.
Okay.
Probably what it was that when he started, he just negotiated better than you did.
Yeah.
So negotiate better. I know people who are both men in a role where one is earning less than the other, purely because the other one negotiated better and said, this is what I want. So I think, be aware of what value you add as much as possible, have evidence for it, and then approach it from that perspective. Because unfortunately, like it or not, when you approach it from the perspective of, I'm a woman, I'm earning less than, it just makes it complicated. And so approach it more from, this is what I'm worth.
Okay.
And know your worth. Interestingly, Osoro talked about how he feels that women are more confident in asking.
Yeah,
But
that's
from
very
everything I've read,
Let me
women,
give you
men,
data, Osoro.
yes, from everything I've
Research.
heard, men are the ones who are able to ask for what they want, and women
data
No,
tend not to
I
ask.
think a lot is changing, especially in the Kenyan landscape. When I look at even the employment environment, we interview every day. And we are seeing this trend that ladies are taking over the workplace.
Okay.
Especially you throw in an interview, you'll potentially have 10 lady candidates against 2 or 3 male candidates, and they'll always come on top.
Yes.
So I think there's a worrying trend,
Okay.
and that's why I'm saying from there, there's the modern lady is able to ask,
This is what I want.
this is what I want. They're very clear on what they want to do in their careers. So, and there's a bit of confidence that is what I've experienced. So that, of course, is changing the landscape slowly. I think let's have this discussion 10, 15 years from now.
Exactly, and there'll be a shift.
We will be talking about, men tend to get paid less than...
So this is data for you. 68% of women take what is offered after they get the job without negotiating.
Yeah.
Men, up to 90%, will negotiate what they're given.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with that observation.
Yeah.
That women tend to, they don't necessarily realize that what an employer puts on the initial offer is up for negotiation. Now, at the end of the day, you may not get more, right? You may not get much more than, you may not get what you were wanting, but it's still a discussion. It's a discussion. You can go back and say, well, thank you for your contract. I've seen it. However, this is the point I'd like to raise.
Okay.
And some of those points don't necessarily have to be on the actual salary that you're paid. It could be on the benefits that come in. And I think most employers are anticipating a discussion.
So when
So when
you
you
just
don't
take it and
discuss,
slide
they're
it.
like, hallelujah. That makes life easy for us. So
Yeah.
I think
It makes life easy, but at the end of the day, you're probably asking, is this the right person for the role?
Right.
Okay.
Because you want someone who's able to ask for what it is that
yes,
they want.
yes. So I would. I mean, I don't know what country those statistics are from.
No, that's US.
But I would agree that very often women show up fabulously at the interview.
Yeah.
They will get the job.
Exactly.
But they probably will not go back and say,
Okay.
thank you for this offer. This is what I would like to say.
Yeah.
I would like to counter it. I'd like to have a discussion about the things you've added. I've noticed you've not given me this, or I've noticed that your medical aid is this, my current medical aid is that. Can we have a discussion about me keeping mine? Whereas I find men are more, I guess maybe they are more risk takers, I don't know. But they are more able to come back and say, I guess because they feel like, at the end of the day, just because you've come back to negotiate doesn't mean that they're going to remove the offer from the table and say, oh, because you've negotiated, we don't want you anymore. Right, that doesn't really happen.
And I think one thing that Mucha is actually just saying that's very right is do not be afraid of negotiating. Do not be sorry about negotiating for your salary, because at the end of the day, you are the one getting paid for the work that you're going to do and you're going to deliver for the organization. So there's nothing to be sorry about. Don't say, can you try and increase this? Can you? No, this is what I would like to have, probably if you consider in the region of this. Don't say, I want to have more. What do you mean by more? More is what? If I added 5 shillings or 10
That's
shillings,
more.
is that more?
Yeah.
So you have to be specific.
Okay.
So, I mean, when you're having these conversations, please take advantage of, you have to have the conversations. If you don't have the conversations, then at least don't blame anyone if things don't go right.
Or
But
if you find out.
you really need to have that conversation.
Okay. Guys, we're literally out of time. So, Mucha, maybe last word to the person is they're thinking either they're going into an interview or they already have the job and they've been thinking of approaching the boss. What are we telling them?
I think the key for me is make it black and white. Detail in preparation for the interview, for the review, what you have done that justifies you being given an increment. What value you bring to the table. And when I talk about value here, I'm not talking about, this idea you have of yourself and how fabulous you are. And maybe you are fabulous, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about value to the organization. So what have you done that has benefited the organization? Where you have examples that have made monetary benefit, even better. People like seeing money as a result. So where you can say, as a result of this project, my contribution in XYZ, this is what happened. I think be very clear why. Be very professional when you go into that conversation. Particularly for someone who's already in a job and you're looking for a raise, be professional. Make sure that you actually, write down, if it's possible, even type it up and share it, that these are the achievements that I have and the reason why. So be very professional. Don't issue any ultimatums. It's not, if you don't give me this, I won't do that. That's very unprofessional. So be professional. If you're not happy, if you don't get what you want, then you are obviously entitled to look elsewhere. But don't give ultimatums, because that's very unprofessional. Yeah.
Asara?
Good. Final points. I think for those who are getting into a job, I think at the point at which you're negotiating, one last word is please set a minimum beyond which you will not be willing to have that discussion. And that minimum, don't cross that line. The other thing that for those who are getting into a new job or changing jobs, you really need to compare the two offers. Compare what you're currently having and what you're going to take. Do not get caught up in the fact that you're looking at the numbers only, because those numbers could lie. The salary difference may be significant, but you lose out a lot on the benefits. And you may not realize that. For those who are in the job, like Mucha has said, it's not a fight. So be very professional around it when you're having that discussion. Another thing that you need to do is, I always say, people work with your line manager first, have that discussion. When they're on your side, it's easier for them to come to HR and then negotiate that change for you. Only in circumstances where you're hitting the stone wall with your manager should you probably then go to your HR partner. But you can seek advice from the HR partner in terms of how to guide you around that conversation. But again, finally, don't try and use your colleagues as a benchmark for this is what they're earning, so this is what I need to earn. The conversation we've had here is value. What is your performance like? What numbers are you bringing that can justify you to get that increase? I think those are my final words.
I think guys are ready for their interviews and they're ready for their reviews. They're ready to walk up to your managers. Let me tell you, every day I tell you this show seeks to make sure that your life is better. And clearly, if you don't know how to negotiate after this, I don't know what I'm going to do. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night. My name is Medrin Nyambura. See you tomorrow.